Hello there and welcome back to my video. So GST 2.0 is here and it is one of the largest GST reforms ever done since its rolling out in 2017. Household essentials will now have a slab of 5% to nil. Life-saving drugs and medicines reduced from 12% to nil or 5%. Two-wheelers, small cars, TVs, ACs, cement all cut from 28% to 18%. Health insurance and life insurance will not have any tax from now on. But luxury items like luxury cars and luxury bikes, aerated drinks, tobacco items and all will have a whopping GST slab of 40%. So in this video, let's look at what all these things will transform into in the ground and how it will benefit the common man. From the introduction of GST in 2017, there was a 4 slab or GST was structured into 4 slabs, that is 5%, 12%, 18% and 28%. But for making the GST regime much easier and user-friendly and for more compliance, the 4-tier system has been reduced to just 2-tier with just 5% and 18% slabs from now on, which aims at developing the industrial and manufacturing and agricultural sectors in the country, which should not be under so much tax burden. And also the registration, return and refund of GST has also been made much simpler so that more people find it easier to get into the GST regime and make their businesses more legitimate and easy to do. India has historically suffered from a very strict and a very burdensome tax regime for centuries now. We know how British used their really repressive tariff and tax systems to drain the Indian economy and get the most profit possible for the British Empire. They actively kept India from industrializing and they broke our textile industries and also our agriculture by using extremely high rates of tax and also by levying such a high rate of tariff on our own goods that the Indian market could not buy from our own artisans or our own manufacturers. I've actually made a few videos on this, so if you're interested, you can check that out. Even Dundee March that was led by Mahatma Gandhi is a prime example of how destructive or how disadvantageous Indians were because of the tax regime imposed on them by the British. I'm sure a burdensome or an unfair tax system goes further back, especially in the Islamic era, but let's not go that far. And then even after we got independence, our tax systems really never reformed or really never worked for the benefit of the common man or the manufacturing sector in India. What we had was the revenue, the income tax, and then the value added tax, or what was a really ambiguous, chaotic tax regime which have no real structure to it or any kind of a reliable logic to it even. Each state in India, that are all the 28 states in India, had their own value added tax system, and these products could not be bought and sold within or across the states under the same VAT system. That is, let's say that you are trying to bring in something from your neighboring state and you have already paid a tax on it in your own state. But if you enter the new state with this product, you once again will have to pay the tax that this new state imposes on it. Otherwise, it will be considered legal and a violation of the tax system, and you will be fined for it, or you won't be allowed to sell or buy that product. Which means that there was a disruption of trade, there was a disruption of manufacturing, and also the distribution of many different things across various states in India. And we also know that because VAT was that complicated and that unreliable, most of the people who actually produced something never paid any tax. and therefore they were always out of the government's purview, or they were always in the unorganized sector, which means that they also never got any benefits that the government was giving the same people, the manufacturing sector. The goal of GST when it was brought out was to tackle all of these issues and create a uniform, easy to comply or easy to use, user-friendly tax reform for our goods and services, so that we would move forward and actually focus on producing more and also consuming more. But we all know that the GST system, which was introduced in 2017, was anything but simple, and it was a really tough time for the Indian government and the Indian economy to transition into this reform or into this regime. And then still the tax rates of most goods were very high. We really did struggle under the GST reform. There is a concept of inverted duty structure correction. What that basically means that the inputs for making products, the taxes for these inputs or raw materials were at a higher rate than the output produced by these goods. So the manufacturers really never had any kind of incentive to create value added products, because if you did that, you would have to pay more tax to the government just to produce that. So that was a very good way to restrict people from production and bringing new products into the market, which would then not help the common people. So this two slab system or this two-tier system of GST that is now being brought out is aimed to reduce that, because GST will now be simpler. There will only be two main slabs and nothing else, and that would actually reduce the cost of production of many things, and we get more value added products in the market easily and at a very lower rate. Will it be helping our manufacturing sector that really needs a lot of help? So let me know in the comment section. Now let's actually look into more details of the GST reform and how it will benefit us. Now I'm reading from Clear Tax, and the things that would or might get cheaper are the health and life insurance, electronics and white goods, that are ACs, TVs, fridges, washing machines, cement, which would get a 80% slab now from 28%. FMCG small sachets to a 5% slab. For small cars, there will be an 18% slab instead of a 28% slab. Essential items, that is daily use items including toothpaste, umbrellas, pressure cookers, sewing machines, small washing machines and bicycles, would all have a 5% slab. And there are sector based or sector centric tax reforms now, which would benefit textiles, fertilizers, renewable energy, automotive, handicrafts, agriculture, health and insurance. I think the automobile sector is going to get a lot of boost, because it is aiming at more manufacturing in India, within the country, by reducing the slabs, because we actually have a high demand for small automobiles, but I'm sure we all suffer from a very high rate when going out and buying it, and that is definitely going to change now. So more and more of vehicles or the transport system in India is going to be revived, which will then again affect the manufacturing much more than consumption. Agriculture is one of the most important part, because we really need much lower costs of doing farming or agriculture if we need to compete with the international market, or at least tap into the domestic market, because I don't think Indian farmers are able to tap into the Indian domestic market. Rather, we rely on much less cheaper products from elsewhere. I think so. What do you think? So this tax reform is also aiming at industrializing or bringing agriculture into its next step by transforming or advancing agriculture, by reducing the taxes of tractors, harvesters, threshers, sprinklers, irrigation system and so on. and also pesticides will now have a much lower tax. So it will definitely help the farmers do or find more profit from farming. Toys, sports and handicrafts is yet again a very important area. We rely on China for most of these things. So by reducing the tax here, probably the artisans or the manufacturers of these things can really tap into our own domestic market. The best thing about this tax reform more than anything is how it treats insurance, healthcare and education, and most significantly education, because almost all the daily essentials needed for education has been now cut down. The slab has cut down to 0%. Life-saving drugs, 33 of them would have 0%, and Ayurveda, Unani, homeopathy will have a 5%, because if you really look into it, Ayurvedic medicines have a very high price. It's not very affordable for the common people, even though it may be beneficial to them. So now the tax is going to reduce for that. And not to forget insurance and individual health insurance and life insurance now have nil rate from 18% to nil. Now I heard somewhere that the prices of the tax of petrol is going to be reduced from 28% to 18%. I didn't see it in the PDF. I hope it's true, because we really need a tax cut on our fuel. What do you think? So this new tax regime has two major implications, if you ask me. The first thing is that it really shows that Indian economy is ready to take the next leap forward into its advancement, because now we are moving towards self-sustaining economic system where we don't have to heavily rely on the tax or government intervention to sustain itself, because by giving more power to the manufacturers and to the people, the players or the stakeholders in our economy, we are actually driving more growth and self-sustenance. And that is what a right-wing conservative government is supposed to do, rather than collecting all this tax from all people for everything. So I'm really glad that we have attained such a growth, so that our government does not have to collect so much tax and focus, and now they can really focus on what they are actually supposed to do, which is increasing the infrastructure and bringing in more welfare schemes for the people, like free education, free healthcare, free insurance, so on, so that people would have a higher standards of living by default, which is something advanced countries really enjoy. And we also know that there have been an issue of higher tariffs that the US is imposing on us, and also the higher tariffs that Donald Trump is threatening us to be burdened with by the European countries or by the larger Western forces. But that is not going to affect us much. Rather, it's going to affect them more because of this inverted duty that we discussed before. Because we don't really export finished products into these markets. We export raw materials or agricultural products or textiles into these markets. So if the tariffs of these things are higher, it's just going to increase the cost of production in these countries more than anything else. So this kind of a disparity where higher tariffs by these Western powers, meaning that less products would go into the West, while enhancing the domestic market to buy more, by empowering them to buy more by reducing taxes, would mean that all of this money and focus and investment would collect in the Indian economy, which would then drive it to a greater level of growth. So I think this is a really amazing thing to happen to our economy in the longest time ever. And also most of the retail chains across India now are giving a lot of offers from 23rd. So go on and buy all the things that you wanted to buy so far, because I'm sure there will be a much less price tag now, but don't buy too much. And as buying, as consuming from our own manufacturers and egg farmers and our own services would mean a stronger economy and an economic growth that is very reliable and self-sustaining. So all power to you. I'm also going to buy a lot of things now from tomorrow. So this is the video. Please let me know what you think about the new tax regime. Do you also think it's beneficial? I'm sure the left or the opposition is going to bring in a lot of different criticisms on this. I challenge you to predict them and comment them down below. A hint would be they are destroying the Indian market. Let me know in the comment section what you think and subscribe for more videos like this and on other topics also. So until we meet next time, bye bye, and don't forget to subscribe.